Hey, welcome to the Real Dad Fitness Podcast. It's episode 10, double digits. I am your co-host, PT.
And I'm your other host, Jonathan. I can't believe we're at episode 10 already. Time flies when you're having fun and talking about fitness.
I know, we're getting good too. You just jumped right in when I paused after. This is
Oh,
PT.
practically professionals.
You picked up my cue, no problem. Yes, it's been exciting. It doesn't seem like 10 episodes. It seems like we just started.
Yeah.
But hey, we're already have more episodes than most podcasts. Most podcasts burn out at like episode 3, 4. So
Wow, well, we're crushing that.
yeah, so we're doing okay.
We're like a Hollywood couple that's been married 5 years. Killing it.
No kidding. So how's it going, Jonathan?
Going good. Life's humming along. Yeah, busy. Just celebrated Mother's Day. That was good. Been deeply rooted in the suburban family life now, so
Right.
you know.
Uh,
How about you? How's life in the world of PT?
Good. Speaking of Mother's Day, I got had a funny moment yesterday when we woke up in the morning, made breakfast for my wife, gave her a present and all that stuff, and then at that point it was 9 o'clock or whatever, and I was looking around on the internet, and then I saw a headline from The Onion that said nation successfully completes Mother's Day by 9:28 a.m. I was like, oh man, that is totally accurate to what I did. And the article is all about how you spend a half hour being really nice to mom, and then basically it goes back to being a regular day. So
Right. I felt kind of like a jerk because we did. I made sure the kids had stuff lined out for my wife and made little presents and stuff like that. Had that all cleaned off on the counter, all ready for her when she woke up. And I think I cooked the kids breakfast, and then subsequently they made me and her breakfast as well. So my wife cooked us breakfast on Mother's Day.
Nice.
I was like, yes, I'm terrible. So, sorry, hon.
No worries. So how's the? I don't know why I'm saying no worries either. I guess I forgive you on behalf of her.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
No problem. So how's the fitness week treating you? Ooh, I see you're drinking your water there.
Good. I'm drinking my water. I'm already done for the day, so it's just
Nice.
bonus water. Those of you who don't know, we're doing the Whole Life Challenge. Every week it has a whole bunch of things you have to do for diet, exercise, and then a bonus thing. And this week's bonus thing is to drink half your body weight in ounces of water every day, not per week. So that's a lot of water if you're keeping track. I don't know. I've been doing it. It's only day 2 or 3. Day 3 of that. I don't know. Yeah, day 3 of drinking the water. And it's definitely a lot of water drinking. All day long, you're just slamming water. Or at least that's what I feel like.
Yeah, it's super annoying. I can't wait for this one to be done. I guess I already drank a fair amount of water, but I feel like I was fine on the water. I don't need to force myself to drink extra water.
Good. I think this one's doing its job for me. As far as the whole life thing is supposed to help you incorporate healthy habits into your daily life, and I think this one's doing it for me because I didn't drink or typically don't drink enough water, and it's one of those things where I realize I don't drink enough water. Now I'm drinking enough water, and I realize how far off the mark I was. I don't think I'll maintain this level, but I'll certainly try and drink a lot of water every day. So yeah, other than that though, fitness has been going pretty good. I've been holding fairly true to my workouts. I try to get in a bunch of little 10-minute workouts, and I've been getting in 2 or 3 really good, or what I would consider good, workouts a week, and then the rest of them are kind of little piddly workouts to complete my whole life challenge goals. So, but overall, I'm feeling good. Feeling a lot of fitness is at the forefront. The whole life challenge is good for anybody, I think, in the respect that it forces fitness to the forefront of your life, and not just fitness, but health in general. So, yeah, I'm feeling good and healthy. How about you? What's your take on it?
Yeah, it's going well so far. It's getting easier. I made it through a whole week now, so I've got some recipes I can go to and some staples that are starting to fall into a pattern. So yeah, it's going well. we talked about this a little bit offline, but my biggest uh, thing that I don't like about the challenge is that I feel really good, but I've just changed so many things about my life so quickly. It's like I don't know it's not a very scientific way to like see what exactly is having an effect, because I've cut out like a ton of stuff I used to eat, and I'm taking fish oil, and I'm doing all this different stuff. So I don't know what's causing what effect. Probably would be better to like change a few things more slowly, so you more carefully determine that. But
Probably. Although I gotta say, the one benefit of changing everything at once, I mean, like, granted, it's not scientific and it's going to be really hard to pinpoint what was the most beneficial and what wasn't even beneficial at all.
right.
But I'm willing to bet that, like, even for me, like, I think, I try and maintain a pretty healthy diet and lifestyle, but, like, it's only been, like, whatever, 9 days now on the Whole Life Challenge. It's all basically, whole foods with no grains. It's kind of the diet thing of it. And I've noticed, like, some pretty major results for only being 9 days into it. Like, I'm fairly trim to begin with, but it's certainly kind of like, got rid of the how everybody kind of fights to lose that last 5 pounds or whatever, that last little bit of belly fat, and pretty much wiped that off in 1 week. I was like, okay, that's pretty effective. So at least, like, in this, even though you change a ton of stuff, you can see some really, really quick results. I think that's really helpful for any, especially in those beginning stages of any new exercise or diet thing. Because your hardest week is always going to be your first one, no matter what your new thing is, if it's a new exercise or new diet or whatever. So you really want to see some benefits there, because otherwise it's really easy to throw in the towel. You know what I mean? Like, why am I doing this? It's really hard, and I get nothing from it. And this one is really hard, but you get at least correct me if I'm wrong. Did you notice any major changes over week one? Because you've stayed true to it. You're at full points, which means you've done all the elements of it every single day without missing any days or any, faltering. So if anybody should see results, it's you.
Yeah. Well, I'm down 2 points, but I'll get those back.
Never mind.
I'll get those back tomorrow. But that's it. My results are out. But no, yeah, I've been I've been dropping crazy weight, like a disconcerting amount of weight. I assume that's gonna like go down, slow down pretty soon. But otherwise, I would be dead. But yeah, so that's been good, I guess. Lose weight really fast. And aside from that, yeah, I just feel really good. And I noticed one big change is that, like, the way I feel very, like, I'm sleeping like super deeply, and like when I wake up, I feel very rested and like wake up like very alert, rather than in the past, a lot of times when I wake up I'm kind of groggy and it takes me a couple minutes to fully wake up. Whereas for the last few days I've just been popping out of bed, so that's definitely good. Again, I wish I knew like what was causing that, though, so I could like keep some of that stuff for all time and not have to do this entire
it's definitely the obscene
forever.
amount of water. I think that.
No way. I did have to get up and pee in the middle of the night last night. It sucks.
Yeah, that kind of ruins it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's going well. I don't really have any negatives or anything so far, other than my nitpick that I don't know what's causing what.
Well, the one thing, at least one thing I want to bring up that are kind of like I've been thinking about because of the Whole Life Challenge is so I've been thinking a lot about diet and nutrition lately, and health, and how all those things tie together. And so I started kind of with protein, because my protein intake has gone up tremendously since starting this Whole Life Challenge. In large part because I'm not that big of a meat eater, and certainly never eat eggs and no dairy anyway. But now on this, giving up all grains, I kind of filled in the gap with protein. So I have been eating a lot of meat since we've started this. Really either meat or egg virtually every meal. So that's a pretty big change in my diet. And it really got me thinking about, like, how good is all this for you? Because I mean, like, obviously their intent is it's really good for you, it's healthy. And so I started doing a little more research to try and pinpoint how much protein is good for you. That was like my starting spot. Because like I'm kind of against animal protein, and started to do some research, and basically have come to the conclusion that no one knows anything about health and fitness. The diet is complete miss one. The information I was finding was so conflicting that it was just absolutely mind-boggling to me how little anyone seems to know, or at least how wrong some people are. Maybe somebody really does have the answer out there, but it's certainly someone else saying that is completely wrong. So,
Right. No, I totally agree with you. I was thinking about that when like I don't know if you looked at that link that I sent you about the whole life challenge that was on the blog today. Where basically like
I did.
The whole point of that was like yeah, saturated fat is actually really good for you. And so man, that's frustrating because like that kind of point of view, because it's like with most stuff with health, you can be like, well, just don't go extreme on anything, keep it all kind of, but like essentially that is like the exact opposite of of like saying, of conventional wisdom or whatever. So that's like, well, and then neither of us are nutritional scientists to be able to investigate it fully on our own.
Right.
So
But
you got to take somebody's word for it, basically.
right, and that was almost like the next step. So yes, you're absolutely right that you have to take somebody's word for it. And the thing that Tyler just was mentioning there, we had read this blog, and it had a video clip from Dr. Oz with some other nutritionists on it, and they were going through saying that everything we know about fitness is wrong. Cholesterol and saturated fats aren't really bad for you. In fact, these things that we get from from grains essentially are way worse, and sugars and processed food are really the problem for heart disease, and saturated fats and cholesterol don't have heart disease. So I was like, well, somebody's totally wrong here, because I mean that's the basis of the last like 50 years of nutritional education from the medical community.
Sure.
So I went through. I'm actually going to do a little reading here.
Yeah.
These are some excerpts from stuff that I found online that I was kind of researching after I saw that article. Okay, this one is on cardiovascular disease. It's from Harvard EDU's website. Will not be lazy and post a link to it at the end. But blah blah. Research conducted at Harvard School of Public Health has found that eating even a small amount of red meat, especially processed red meat, on a regular basis is linked to an increased risk of heart disease, stroke, risk of dying from cardiovascular disease and other causes. Conversely, replacing red and processed meats with healthy proteins such as poultry, fish, or beans seems to reduce that risk. One investigation followed 120,000 men and women in the Nurses' Health Study. Blah blah. For every additional 3 ounces of servings of unprocessed red meat the study participants consumed each day, the risk of dying from cardiovascular disease increased 13%. Okay, so that's one from Harvard. Here's one from, this one's called Mark's a guy he's a fitness guy, he's written a ton of books. Here's a little excerpt from one of his things. Animal protein is more complete and contains more essential amino acids. He's writing kind of against sources of protein, plant versus animal, basically. The amino acids we can't synthesize in our bodies. This requires diet from optimal health from plant protein. Plant proteins often come with plant toxins, while animal protein is generally harmless. This is probably why plant protein consumption has been linked to increased disease risk, and animal protein consumption has little or no effect. So that's basically saying the complete opposite of that.
Right.
Printed out some other articles on like how much protein is enough. I won't bore you guys with reading everything. But I was trying to figure out like what is going on with all this health and nutrition. And my 2 cents on the whole thing, I think if you try and like, it's the whole seeing the forest through the trees kind of a thing. Because the more research you dig into almost anything in nutrition, the more confused you're going to be. It's just like crazy conflicting information. One source says do it, one source says doesn't. I think like my approach is to kind of look at people that live a long time and look at the overall, health studies like that and see who's living the longest. You know, what seems to be working the best. And I did find some good articles that basically said essentially vegetarians live the longest. And of course, you can also find conflicting information on this. So again, it's really confusing. And here's one little keynote that I'd like to add on. This is another little reading. Sorry to bore everybody, but it's from the journal JAMA International Medicine, and it's about eating vegetarian diets and how it might increase life expectancy. It says researchers found compared with non-vegetarians, all vegetarians had a 12% lower risk of dying over whatever the period of time. It goes through, everybody basically lives a little bit longer if they're vegan or vegetarian. But then there's a keynote to this. However, it is important to note that people who are vegetarians tend to be more likely to be married, have higher educational levels, and be older and thinner. They're also more likely to exercise, to not smoke, and to not drink. So in other words, yeah, maybe being a vegetarian does increase your life expectancy, or maybe it's because people that tend to be vegetarians are super health conscious.
Right.
So it's kind of like your whole health. It's kind of like your issue with the whole life challenge.
Right.
It's not like they're just being vegetarians and then they're going off and you know, doing 15 lines of blow every weekend and smoking some cigarettes. They're probably also flossing their teeth and, you know, exercising and being healthy in a number of different levels.
Right. Right. Yep. So here at Real Dad Fitness, we believe we have no idea. Do whatever you want. We don't know. We don't care.
I don't know. What do you think? Where is your head at in the crazy mad world of nutrition and health?
Well, I mean, I think the one thing that most agree on is that you know, like, super processed foods are bad. You know, so I guess if we could all get on board with that. If we're eating natural, you know, whole foods, I think that's, you know, we're ahead of 95% of the at least America, you know, with that. So for right now, I'm just going to focus on that and try to not drive myself too crazy with you know, the other stuff. I'll eat meats and vegetables and that stuff, and I guess try to not stress myself out about it right now.
Yeah, I think that's a great philosophy. So I think that's kind of the best path to take, because I think honestly, like, the reason it's so confusing too is that to really get a good study on, like, a really good study on the effects of nutrition and health, essentially you have to take a whole bunch of random samplings of different people in different, you know, parts of the United States, different genetic backgrounds, and follow them for 60 years and monitor everything they eat for 60 years. That's a really tough study to do and really expensive, and it can only be done once per lifetime. So, you know,
and the other thing that along with that is, like, even, like, you know, there's that whole like China study thing that some would say, like, really shows why a plant-based diet is really good. Well, there's also scientists who look at that same exact study and are like, well, that doesn't show that at all. You're totally misinterpreting the data. So even if we do that study, we're still going to have huge fights over, like, what the data actually means and all that stuff.
Right. So yeah, but I think you're absolutely right, though. I think in the end of it, you know, as much as you can and still enjoy your life, stick with whole foods. Eat more, you know, a diet heavily weighted in fruits and vegetables. That's pretty much going to be all your really long living cultures. Basically have that as a staple. You know, a little less meat, a little more fruits and vegetables, and keep it, in the whole realm. Stay away from the crazy preservatives and chemicals until we figure out exactly what they do to us, and roll on like that. Do the whole life challenge once in a while, because it'll remind you to eat healthy.
Yeah. So we have a listener question related to this topic, if I may pose it to you. This comes to us from Martin. Martin says, I'd love to hear your thoughts on diet food, that is the low-fat stuff. I tend to stick to full-fat versions of yogurt, etc. I do this as a source of protein, as I understand it. It keeps me, and as I experience it, keeps me fuller longer. And I personally think that people forget fat is a vital part of a balanced diet, and therefore swap to the low-fat side of things. From what I gather, low-fat items are often packed full of sugar and other carbs to replace the fats. So I guess his question is pretty much along the lines of what we were just talking about. Um, but what do you think of the
Yeah.
whole low-fat foods?
Oh, Martin brings up a great point that it is that yeah, fat is like there's a huge movement in like the 80s, like mid 80s about fat, and that's when like the whole fat and saturated fat and cholesterol and heart disease link came out. Now we're whatever, nobody even knows if it's right or not anymore. But that's when like we made that push to zero fat, and you'd see like no fat diet sodas came out then. And I mean, there's a great example. So you can drink a diet Coke, which is full of, in my opinion, a ton of crap. It has no fat and no sugar in it, but it's certainly, I don't think, something you should be drinking on the path to a healthy life. um, Certainly, full fat, yeah, like if you're going to drink, full fat milk versus skim milk, I think you're okay. I dodge dairy, but yeah, he's right in the sense that the fat isn't evil. It is part of what we need to keep our body running properly. We need it in our organs and our digestive tract. We need fat in our brains. We can't go zero fat. It's just yeah, and he's also right in the sense that if you have a glass of skim milk versus a glass of whole milk or 2% or whatever, odds are you're going to be hungry a little sooner. But again, and again, there's tons of great good fats. You can get like all your nuts are going to be high in fat, and they're kind of the good fats for you. So yeah, fat isn't evil. Don't avoid fat like the plague, but just kind of get it from good sources. You can also get plenty of fat from McDonald's French fries, and I would say don't do that. you know.
Dang it, I was about to head over there.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you for that, Martin. While we're talking about food, so I watched this documentary this week that I wanted to just mention briefly, and it was called Food Fight. Essentially, it was kind of a basically the whole point of it was you should be trying to eat like local, eat stuff that is go to the farmer's market and eat stuff made by grown by local farmers and all this stuff. And I'm trying to decide whether to recommend this documentary because there's lots of interesting stuff, but also they spend about half the documentary like focused on this like restaurant where these in California where there's like the kind of the birth of the like eat local movement. That part I found extremely boring, but the other half where they talked about like that was all focused on like why it's good to eat local and stuff like that. It was super interesting, I thought. And 2 points that they made up that I thought were very interesting was that what part of it was kind of talking about like big agriculture and like all the reasons that it grew so big. And one of the big things I talked about was how like in World War II, one of the big problems we had was that we were trying to draft young men, and tons of young men were just malnourished and way too hungry and didn't get enough to eat and all that stuff. Think about like Captain America, like that's kind of the premise of Captain America is he was too skinny and weak to join the army, and that was like a major problem. So that's like kind of why the government started subsidizing like agriculture and big agriculture. So that was very interesting, I thought. And then one point on that was like it's crazy how we've gone in like 70 years from being a nation that was like super malnourished and basically starving to like being super obese nation. And they were kind of like that's horrible, but being totally contrarian, I was like, well, that's awesome. I mean, it sucks to be obese, but at least we're not starving to death.
Right.
Although I'm sure there still are some people. But the other point that I thought was really interesting was they talked about how the government subsidizes tons of crops and stuff like that, but for the vast majority of government subsidies, vegetables are considered a specialty crop, so they don't qualify for like the vast majority of government subsidies. Like it's considered like a specialty item, and vast majority goes towards grains. So
Wow.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised when I learned that.
I could kind of see that when you're talking about the origins of, especially like something we did during World War II, because frankly, if you're trying to feed a army that's on a different continent, a tomato is worthless.
Right.
Especially in 1930, you can't get the tomato there or the carrots there or anything there before it's rotten. You can't feed your troops with it, but you can sure as heck feed them with corn and wheat and grain products that you can cross an ocean over months and then prepare into usable food. Hence, which is why grains. I mean, that's the awesome part about grains is you can feed huge quantities of people with it and you can store it. You can save it for times when you can't grow crops. I mean, there's tons of awesome cultural benefits. Maybe not as much in the modern world, but getting to this point, it kind of helped us get there.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it sounds interesting. The documentary. I think I'd like to check it out. But
yeah, the other kind of interesting aspect of it was when they talked about they're basically saying, and I'm not sure how true this is because I've eaten it from farmers markets and stuff like that, but they're basically saying if you don't buy your tomato at a farmer's market, you don't really know what a tomato tastes like. It's such a completely different, the mass-produced tomato that you get at the grocery store is such a different thing than the locally grown tomato that can that is allowed to age properly and all that stuff. And they're yeah, people don't know what a strawberry really tastes like. So I wasn't sure if I was fully on board with that because I'm pretty sure I've had homegrown tomatoes and I didn't notice it be completely different. But
yeah. I think there's a difference to a homegrown tomato than a store-bought, but I think it's a much smaller difference in there. Because I grew up in the country, so we grew our own. My parents still grow their own tomatoes, and they taste better than the store ones. But
sure. It's
not like it doesn't taste like a tomato. You know what I mean? So.
What is this crazy fruit? Looks like a tomato. So anyway, you can check out Food Fight. It's you can watch it on Amazon and I think Netflix and Hulu too. I think it's on all those.
Cool. I actually brought it up on Amazon because you mentioned it earlier this week, and it was a pay per show. It wasn't on Prime.
Oh,
for me. I don't know.
Thank goodness. Yeah, I almost misled everyone.
Yeah, so for $3 you can rent it on Amazon.
Well, I just ran.
Hey, just. All right. Well, cool. Quick question. My own little personal side note. On that, do they talk about the energy cost or energy benefits of eating local, eating local foods versus mass-produced stuff?
Yeah, they do a little bit. The main that's definitely not the main focus of it, but they touch on it briefly.
Okay, just curious. I've just have kind of as my own little side thing when I get a chance. I've been trying to I don't know, focus on energy dependence and where our world is going and how to balance that. Anyway, totally unfitness related, but I was just curious because that kind of ties into it, the energy cost of any food you eat, because the energy cost of a locally grown tomato is really low, and by the energy cost I mean you don't have to put it on a truck and use 1,000 gallons of fuel to get it across the country to eat it, or throw it on a boat and get it across from continent to continent or anything like that. And versus a cow, even if I'm eating, if you go to McDonald's and eat a hamburger, that cow came from a long way away. It had to be raised, so they spent years of growing grain and feeding the cow and taking care of the cow and all that stuff and all the equipment that it takes to build and maintain the farm. And then they transport the cow, they butcher the cow, they process the cow, they drive it across the country, they open the McDonald's, and they feed you that hamburger. So the actual amount of energy, fossil fuels or whatever you want to call it, however you're getting your energy from, there's a huge amount of energy that's used to get every piece of meat you eat, especially beef, versus something like a tomato or piece of corn or anything like that, especially when you buy a locally grown one. So just something to think about. Not that I want to harp on get up on a soapbox or anything like that, but farmers markets, it's a great little thing to get good nutritious food that is also very low in energy costs. So go hippies, I guess. Go do that.
Yeah. I went to my farmer's market last Saturday. It's my humble brag. Not that I'm awesome, but
support the
local farmer.
You get one awesome point for that guy.
Awesome. Thanks.
No problems.
All right, I got a couple articles, and I got a nomination for what we should do after the whole life challenge. One possible nomination. But
Okay, all right.
where do you want to go first?
Can I jump in on one little since you got to do
Yeah,
a movie fitness
bring it
thing?
on.
I was watching part of the Weight of the Nation on HBO documentary
Mm,
series,
right on.
and it was a little short clip. It was like a 20-minute one on a girl that was trying to bring essentially a salad bar into her low income food or area. It was somewhere in the South anyway. But there's only one point I kind of wanted to bring up on this, and it kind of got me thinking. So they showed like a little graph, a little chart about obesity versus economics. So in other words, the more affluent you were, the less likely you are to be obese. And I thought that stat was kind of crazy, um, just because I don't know. I mean, one, it seems like if you had like the more money you have, essentially, the more food options you certainly have. The more frequently I would think you can go out to eat, to a restaurant. So there's a little piece of me that's like, man, it's kind of counterintuitive. It seems like if I had if money was no object, if I had all the money in the world, or the more money you have, the more often you can go out to dinners, and certainly there's not really good, that's not a good way to lose or maintain weight.
Sure.
But apparently that's completely wrong because the more money you have, the skinnier you are, the less likely you are to be obese, I should say. So what's your thoughts? I have a couple theories on it, but what's your take on the inverse relationship between obesity and wealth?
Wow, I don't know. It's a hot button topic. There's a lot of ways you could go here, and
Right?
yeah.
Putting you on the spot.
I guess in general, it doesn't, and this isn't 100% true, but in general, the totally overgeneralize, unhealthy food is cheaper than healthy food. And going out, if someone has more money wants to go out to eat, and someone who doesn't have much money wants to go out to eat, the chances are the person who doesn't have much money is going to go to a fast food restaurant, whereas the person with more money would more likely go to a restaurant that probably at least has some healthy options, I would say. And everybody wants to go out to eat sometimes. It doesn't matter your income level.
Right, absolutely. Uh, yeah, I have a theory too that some of it, I think there's my two theories. One is education level. I think you forget, or like at least for me, it's really easy to forget that sometimes like not everyone knows anything at all about health and nutrition. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Like there's certainly like an element of the population that's just like, what? Like I mean, like almost to the point where it's like, oh, I'm eating McDonald's every day and that's bad for me. What?
Right.
Like so I mean, not that people in lower income brackets necessarily don't, but I think the odds are that they've had less nutritional education, and I think on the other side, like it seems like the more you know the higher income bracket you hit, the more of a keeping up with the Joneses attitude you have.
Sure.
You tend to get really aggressive, competitive people, and man, everybody wants to make more money and to look better and to have nicer stuff.
Sure.
And I think maybe that's part of that equation too. That it's just the nature of the person that strives, and fights to be in those higher income brackets that they that kind of carries over to every aspect of their life, including fitness or health, or at least the appearance of those things. Nobody wants to be like the overweight trophy wife, Can't do that.
Sure. And I think part of it too that you can't rule out is just access to stuff. Like, I mean, there's going to be nice parks in higher income neighborhoods with running paths, and you're gonna have access to be able to afford to go to the gym or buy equipment. Not that you can't get fit without any of that stuff, but just makes it that much easier when you have access to equipment and places where you can exercise.
True. And probably the whole hierarchy of needs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're making, 200 grand a year, I would say you've got your basis of food and shelter covered, unless you're really screwing up with your budget. But
Right.
so you can certainly not have those high on your worry list, and then maybe you can find self-improvement a little easier. So I guess there's that too.
Totally.
So.
Indeed.
All right, good. Well, we solved that one.
Yeah. So we're good.
So
there you go, poor people. Just don't be.
That's it, poor people. Now you know why.
That should totally help you. Yes.
Yeah.
Sadly, we cannot solve that one this time. We'll think about that for next week and solve it then.
All right.
All right. So we're starting to run low on time, but so would you rather hear about my nomination for After the Whole Life Challenge, or would you rather hear about a couple of interesting fitness-related articles?
Let's do the fitness-related articles. We're in the baby stages of Whole Life Challenge, so it's too early.
Fair enough. All right, so this one I just want to point out really quick because I thought it was a very interesting article. It comes from a website called Fittish, FITTISH.com, and it was I don't really have a lot to say about this article other than I thought it was a really interesting article. It's called An Ex-Con's Guide to Prison Weightlifting, and it's this dude who just got out of jail wrote this article. He's been in jail for 10 years, and he talks about like the weightlifting culture in prison, and like what a big part of like the culture weightlifting is, and like the crazy lengths guys are going to they're spending all their money on like just buying cheap cans of tuna and downing it to get their protein and stuff like that. And like he was at one prison where actually I think he said in the state of California, weights are actually banned in prisons, and all they have is pull-up bars. So like the guys have come up with all these crazy like exercises using pull-up bars that work all sorts of different muscle groups and stuff like that. And he said there's all these different exercises that he's never seen outside of prison. And anyway, just a very interesting article talking about how bodybuilding is a huge part of the prison culture. And his kind of the whole like somewhat like political point of it was a lot of states have or are thinking about taking away like weights because they're like, we don't want prisoners to just get super bulked up or whatever, and get super tough and then come out and be the same criminal but tougher. But his whole point is like it's super good for self-esteem, and there's a lot of good benefits to weightlifting that we should allow prisoners to continue that. But very interesting article, I thought.
Yeah, that sounds like an interesting article. I certainly agree with that guy's point about allowing the prisoners to have weights, because I think in anybody's life, if you're especially like fitness, like your fitness routine is for the most part something you can really control, and you can't you can always be successful at it. You know what I mean? Like right. You can go work out and you're like, okay, I went and worked out. Check that right off my list. I feel good. I've accomplished something, and over time, you're like, oh, I'm more fit now. I can lift more weight. I can do whatever. It's super good sense of accomplishment. Crap, you've got nothing going on in prison except that.
Right.
How would you take that away from them? It's like such a good thing. I mean, it's like this is your one thing you can do, and you can feel good about it. And you can actually feel good about yourself. Yeah.
Yep.
Seems like terrible to take that away.
Yep. It's kind of funny too. He talks about in the article how the vast majority of prisoners, you'll basically as soon as they get out of prison, just completely stop working out and totally lose all the fitness. So you'll see a guy go out on parole or whatever, and then come back 3 months later for violating his parole and be all flabby, and then he'll have to get back into prison shape again.
Huh.
So anyway, check out that article on Fittish.com, a website name that's hard to say, but good name, I think. All right, this has been a hot fitness topic this week in the news, Jonathan. So Vibram FiveFingers, those shoes with the 5-finger shoes?
The toes.
Yes, the toe shoes. So they had a class action lawsuit against them that they settled out of court this week for something like $94 million, I think it was. Basically, and I've seen this on a bunch of different websites about how, haha, you people who wore those were idiots. These aren't, obviously these are bad. But really what the lawsuit was someone sued them for like basically making claims that weren't scientifically backed up, and saying that they could improve your foot strength and improve your foot health, and they didn't have any scientific studies to back that up. So that's all the lawsuit was. So because they made that claim, they have to award like $94 million back to people who bought their shoes.
Wow.
Yeah. So pretty crazy. But
well, it's kind of a
go ahead.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, what if they actually come out with a scientific study that says it now? Can they stop the refund?
I don't know.
Like if they because I mean, it essentially sounds like they just didn't do their homework. You know what I mean? Like
right.
Somebody sat down and said, "Oh, theoretically, if you wore these barefoot, less restrictive shoes, it would be better for you," but didn't do any actual research to back that up. And then
right, yeah, they and it's crazy. The lady who started the lawsuit, it sounds like from what I read that she like didn't have any foot problems or anything like that. She just like realized that they didn't do that and was like, all right, sounds like a good.
She just likes litigation, nice, and money. Those
yes.
are awesome things.
I don't know the specifics of her situation. I don't want to say for sure, but that's what it seems like from what I read.
Right, it seems like a bummer because I know a couple people that have used those shoes, and the ones that I know that have used them have really liked them, and I know one dude that was running and had, I think it was knee issues, and they started running with those, and it like corrected, according to him, corrected something in his stride or step or whatever, and forced him. So I think he said it forced him to run on the pads of his feet as opposed to his heels. Because it hurts if you run the opposite way, and he said it really helped him. So I haven't used a pair of those for running yet myself. Maybe I won't, because apparently they're for crap. But I don't know. According to people I know, they've liked them, enjoyed them, and said it helped with their running.
I also read that there's a movement of people like who are big fans of them that are gonna. Because like essentially anyone who bought them, you can go file for your claim and get your refund or whatever. So and they have to pay that $94 million no matter what. So a bunch of people who are big fans of them are going to go file for their claims, get that money, and then go buy another pair or whatever to like support the company basically.
Oh, well, that's cool. I'm going to go to. Have you ever been to like a Tough Mudder or a Warrior Dash?
I have not. No.
At the end, you get, obviously it's super muddy. I know they do this during the Warrior Dash. At the end, you're like just super, super muddy.
Right.
And so most people take their shoes and they throw them in a big giant pile, and someone actually goes through and cleans the shoes and then donates them. So I'm just going to go to that pile and take out all those 5-finger toes and then get my $94 a piece.
There you go.
No, I'm just kidding. I won't do that. That's it. I can make like 10, 20 grand just from one race.
I kind of like
if anyone is listening out there, don't do that. That's a terrible, terrible thing. I'm just kidding.
It's be a great time to mention we are not an advice podcast. We don't give any medical or legal or financial advice. It's for entertainment purposes only. But
it's just I give all kinds of advice. Listen to me. Anyway.
So I kind of like the whole concept of barefoot like running or minimalist shoes running, like the whole. I obviously have no scientific research either. I haven't done any, just like Vibram. But I like the theory that that your foot is like, it's got all these like nerves on it that have developed over time to basically the whole point of them is to like show you how hard to step and where to step and like to correct your step to be perfect, and and we have these running shoes that over time have gotten more and more and more padding on it that basically encourage us to like step as hard as we can to try and like feel the ground in our feet. So that I think that part of the barefoot running or minimalist running kind of makes sense to me on a logical level. I haven't ever done it, but I don't know. What's any thoughts on the whole barefoot running or minimalist shoe running kind of thing?
I don't know. I think I should try it because I've heard some really good arguments from people that do the whole minimalist barefoot running thing, and I haven't tried it out yet, so I should probably give it a shot. I like your theory because generally speaking, it seems like when we try to pull one over on Mother Nature, it rarely works out the way we intended to. On the other hand, seatbelts are unnatural and they seem to work pretty good. So every once in a while, we beat the theory.
Good point.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I like where your head's at. give it a shot.
All right. We'll go for a barefoot run sometime and write an article about it.
Sounds good.
First barefoot mile or something. All right. Well, I guess that'll do it. Anything else that you need to discuss? We need to discuss?
Nah, I think that's as much as you can pack into one podcast.
All right. Sounds good. Hey, by the way, I was talking to our friend Andy, who writes the Fat Dad columns for us. First of all, I think we got to take away the Fat Dad moniker from him pretty soon, because he was like posting, how they have the different running apps, and they like post, some of them post to Facebook like what your mileage and time was or whatever.
Oh, right, yeah.
And so he has one of those. And just as a backstory, I ran a race with Andy last summer, and he had a really hard time completing that 5K, and I was definitely way faster than him. But in this most recent thing that I saw update on Facebook, I was like, wow, he's officially faster than me now, for sure. So
wow, go Andy.
Good job, Andy. Yeah.
Good job, Andy.
So we're talking about he and I are talking about running a race sometime this summer, and I know you and I were talking about running a race sometime this summer too. But when I was talking to him, he was saying that we got to get some Real Dad Fitness T-shirts before we run that race. It'd be great little bit of advertising to be out there running our race.
Absolutely.
So let's keep that.
I'm in. Let's do it.
Cool. All right. Come to RealDadFitness.com. Hey, check out we're doing like videos like 5 to 7 times a week each on the Whole Life Challenge. So come watch our little videos and you get like daily updates. It's going to be sweet. At the end, I'm thinking we should edit it all together into like one little documentary kind of.
Absolutely. When we finish the Whole Life Challenge, I want to do like a comprehensive overview, like a true review in hindsight. And we will have all those videos, daily blogs and videos too. Keep in mind they're only 2-minute blogs or 1 minute or whatever, so you don't have to spend an hour on each day's review. But yeah, we have all those little reviews, daily reviews on the Whole Life Challenge. So check them out. And we'll do a comprehensive review at the very end.
Absolutely. That'll be awesome. All right. Head over to iTunes, subscribe to us, rate us, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you prefer. Do one of those 2 things. I don't care which. Just do one of them. And I guess that'll do it for us. So until next time, this is PT. I got to run.
This is Jonathan. Stay real, stay fit, Dad.